Welcome to Mrigashira, a podcast that communicates with communicators. This podcast is a tribute to our fantastic fellow professionals, colleagues, and friends. I'm Charu Raizada, and this podcast is brought to you in association with Digitales. On today's episode, we talk to 3 leaders and get to know more about the Women Leading Change Awards. Yes, the Women Leading Change Awards by Campaign India is finally here. This award has been running for the last 5 years across Asia Pacific and celebrates women who lead, inspire and motivate greatness as well as champion the advancement of other women in the marketing communications industry. So if you are a women leader, do not hesitate to tell your story and self-nominate. The last date for the awards is January 31st and not much time left there. Joining us on today's episode are Raahil Chopra, Managing Editor, Campaign India, Rashmi Vikram, Chief Equity Officer, APAC, Dentsu International, and Radha Radhakrishnan, Corporate Communication Specialist and Council Member, WICCI PR and Digital Marketing Council. Stay with me on Mrigashira. Hello and welcome to Mrigashira, Raahil, Radha, and Rashmi. Allow me to start by thanking you, Raahil, for finally bringing in the Women Leading Change Awards to India. Tell us more, who should enter and why?
Right. Yeah, you mentioned finally, it's something that we believe to finally, I think a few years late to introduce these awards. We've been talking about this internally at Haymarket since 2018 now. And it all stems from the fact that we were reading reports that while there were plenty of women in advertising, media and marketing, when it came to these women progressing and taking up leadership positions, the number fell drastically. And then I think a couple of years later, I remember seeing something in 2020, which stated that the percentage of women in leadership positions across advertising and marketing was increasing, which was good news. But then came COVID. And with the COVID pandemic, obviously a lot of companies were under pressure. They were reducing work staff, they were not giving the salary hikes that people deserve. And again, who were impacted the most were women. And there was this LinkedIn report which suggested that 85% of women in India missed out on a race completely during 2020 and 2021. And this is something that, I mean, while a lot of us faced pressure, but it was obviously impacting women more. We believe this needs to be changed, and that can only be changed when we celebrate women. And that's when we thought we have to launch Women Leading Change right away. This is one way of recognizing women and celebrating women in leadership position. And I think once we do that and people see more women in the limelight, I think that's what's going to help women in this space.
No, it's very interesting that you say that, because it is time that we move beyond just lip service. And Rashmi, let me come to you and ask you, how is your organization encouraging aspiring women leaders, grooming them for leadership roles?
So at Denso, we have a very unique proposition where we want to create a fair and equal society. That's the mission with which our social impact strategy is defined as well. Now, in order to create a fair and equal society, it means that we need to also ensure that we are creating equitable opportunities for people. And I think that is the reason why we are encouraging more women to apply for roles in advertising, to apply for roles in technology as well, and at the same time aspire to grow into leadership positions. Now, if you look at some of the top chief marketing officers across the globe, there is an equal distribution of men and women in these roles. But at the same time, when we try to look at decision-making roles, that's where we see a lot of women falling off. So at Denso, we have a number of programs that we run, and we run it across the globe, basically in order to provide women opportunities to interact, network, and learn from other colleagues across the globe. And at the same time, give them opportunity to have mobility in their careers as well. So I think that's where we are in the journey. I don't think we've reached there yet, but I feel that it's a journey and then we are moving along.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm certainly looking forward to the Women Leading Change Awards and know more about the success stories of women with diverse backgrounds. It's very interesting what you've talked about, Rashmi, what your organization is doing. Would you be encouraging women to participate in some of these awards, or do you see reticence?
I wouldn't say reticence. I think that it is an opportunity for women to apply for these awards. It's an opportunity for them to have their stories heard. And I'm a very strong believer in the power of stories. And not every story has just one single identity. There will be multiple layers to it. It could be stories which have a lot of struggle in it. It could be stories which has allyship in it. It will have stories where they have seen sponsorship, helping them grow. At the same time, how they've lent a hand in making sure that even men within their teams are growing. So I think these stories need to come out because it will encourage other women, other men as well to participate in this program. And I feel it kind of moves beyond the binary at a point of time, right? And so I feel that the narrative has to start, and I would encourage folks to apply.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. Tell us more about the categories, Raahil. Any tips for women who are thinking of applying? Who should be applying? Some more details there.
See, we have, I think, more than 20 categories. So it's pretty much anyone who's in the advertising, marketing, PR, in the digital workspace. I think there's enough opportunity for everyone to apply into them. And like we've mentioned before as well, it's just a combination of things that Rashmi said, that people should be putting out their stories out there. That's what we want. We want women to come and put their stories up there. I think what we are anticipating is more than 100 entries, which is, I think, a great start for the awards. We weren't expecting those many. So we believe there are enough and more women out there in the industry who want to put their story forward. And that's what we want to encourage. We want everyone to just participate. They're varying categories. We have one for under 30. We have the CEO of the year. We have the entrepreneur of the year. So plenty of categories for everyone. And that's what we want to do. Even within the women's space, we have diversity out here. And we want to just celebrate women across industries in the categories that we cover.
That's good to know, because then there's something for everybody to look at. Radha, I'm going to go and ask you, as somebody who represents WICCI Public Relations and Digital Marketing Council and is working on focus initiatives to encourage talented and capable women stay on track in their careers. What Raahil had mentioned earlier about a LinkedIn study where he found that leadership roles, when it came to leadership roles in the communication industry, you didn't find as many women. How is WICCI trying to support that, to ensure that more and more women take on the leadership roles?
So one of the things typically that Charu, you and I, as part of WICCI members, have seen is that somewhere along the line, when people have about 6 years, 7 years experience, or even for that matter later, between 6 to 12, 13, either people tend to put their career on a backseat, or sometimes just move out or move away, because managing personal priorities and managing career sometimes becomes a bit of a problem. So I think from WICCI perspective, we're trying to address it at multiple levels. At one level, every year through the survey, we're trying to understand where the needle has moved for the better, and where the needle still needs to move for the better, and consequently, what are some of the key areas where the industry needs to be sensitized and the industry needs to know. I think the survey, the annual survey that we have planned is a good one in that direction. The second thing that we do is the mentorship program, where specifically we have chosen the experience group that I was talking about, and trying to support them through various aspects that requires for them to be leaders, or gives them the confidence to be leaders, and just hang in there and not give up, immaterial of what the challenges are. That's the second aspect of it. And the third aspect of it is sometimes, we just need somebody like a professional shoulder, if I may call it so, where we just talk about what our industry is, or what some of the very basic or operational challenges that we go through and how to handle that better. It's just that, an opportunity to vent out and an opportunity where we can seek a professional counseling or help. And that's where Hear Her initiative comes in, where we are basically supporting a lot of women when their career is in doubt or when some of the work related issues bother them. They are just in a position to talk to us. So I think we're trying to address it at multiple levels, and it's always better to be consistent. It is always better to be persistent. So that's what WICCI is intending to.
Tell us more about mentoring. What role can mentoring play to develop leadership skills and bridge the equality gap?
So, we are addressing it at two levels. One is the basic skill that is required for somebody to be able to, climb up the ladder. Doesn't matter whether eventually it leads to a CEO or not. Like, for example, many people sort of say that, the moment you become a CEO, you become like a P&L head, and I don't understand finance. I don't understand how sectoral, like, for example, if I'm pitching for an oil and gas industry, I don't understand the basic industry dynamics from a finance point of view, etc., etc. So some of these are basically adding on to your present skills that is required for your job, and some are purely from a soft skill point of view, how to build better networking skills. For example, all of us know, and all of us, I think, acknowledge that men are very good at networking, and when it comes to women, we tend to somewhere rationalize, saying I don't have time for this, and I can't be doing all this, I need to manage many things on the personal front, etc., etc., and we don't realize the importance of networking, right? And networking doesn't mean that we need to do all the things or the same things that men do, right? I mean, we can do networking in our own way and still be on top of it. So some of these skills, how do you build in networking as part of your work life or as part of your daily life? How do you handle interpersonal relationships? How do you handle conflict? These are some of the things which are on the softer side. Eventually, probably all of us have learned it, and all of us have learned how to do it, but that has taken us time, and that has taken us intense amount of experiences, right? So these are some of the things that we're trying to address through mentoring.
Right. Rashmi, let me ask you, what kind of programs do you have when it comes to mentoring at Dentsu International?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think the way we are looking at mentoring is in multiple areas. Now, what Radha mentioned was one of the traditional ways in which we've looked at mentoring in terms of creating opportunities for someone to look up to or someone to reach out, learn from a mentor's skills as well. I believe that we are also in a journey towards allyship over here, where a mentor also gets an opportunity to learn from the skills that the mentee is bringing to the table. In our organization, there are multiple opportunities for this to happen. While we don't have a formal mentoring program within the organization, the aim is to encourage managers, to encourage leaders, to provide that opportunity, to provide that allyship where they are seen as open and welcoming for mentees to approach them and formalize a relationship where they can ask questions, understand how a mentor is influencing or negotiating within the organization. What are some of the skills that they bring to the table that the mentees can aspire to? This is some of the informal ways in which this is happening. In terms of formal, we have leadership development programs that have been established within the organization. And in this particular program, what happens is that there are opportunities where the participants hear from various role models and speakers across the organization. And these are both men and women leaders who have done some really amazing work in the space of advertising and marketing. And it's an opportunity for the participants to actually expand their network and learn from these folks as well.
Right.
And what Radha brought up was a very beautiful concept, right, Charu, in terms of ensuring that people are made comfortable to even speak about some of the challenges that they face, both interpersonal as well as the professional space. From my experience working in the DEI sector, I see many a times really successful women struggling with some of those concepts where they want to break into a conversation, but because of their inherent nature they may be struggling to do that, and that's when this whole network or group of people come together and help them to grow forward.
Thank you. Organizations like Denso and people like you are really working towards ensuring that we pave the way in a bigger way and a better way for future leaders, future women leaders. Coming back to you, Raahil, what does diversity in advertising look like today? And being an authoritative voice of the media, marketing, and advertising community in the country, how could Campaign India help mold the narrative?
So this is something we've been looking to do for a while now. And I don't know if you all have followed this thing. I think we started this back in 2013 or 14, which was we would put up a review of all the ads that we covered on Campaign India.
Right.
We would have creative heads that were reviewing them. And we also had Dr. Sharda, who heads Ladli, which is basically a group that works in the media space to change the way people look at women in advertising. And we have something called a gender sensitivity score for each of these ads. So while the creative heads would be looking at it from a creative point of view, Dr. Sharda would be giving a gender sensitivity score for each of them.
Okay.
And what we are seeing is, and this is based on a conversation which I had with a creative head just a couple of weeks ago, there was this point which Dr. Sharda would bring up in almost every ad film which he reviewed when it came to cars. It was shown that the man is driving and the woman is sitting next to the man. And obviously those films were not rated as highly as the other ones. And she would bring that up in almost every ad campaign. I'm not naming the creative head out here, but he had a word with me just 2 weeks ago saying that he took note of this. And in the ad campaign, which his agency released, I think a couple of weeks ago, a little more than a couple of weeks ago, they made sure that the woman was at the driving. Yeah. Man was seated at the co-passenger seat, and interchangeably, I think the next shot showed the man drive and the woman sitting on the co-passenger seat. So things like this, they're small things, but they're helping change the whole narrative of women. You don't want to see them. Women drive. That's something that we've seen happening for years now, but it wasn't shown in our advertising for some reason. So small changes like this go, I think, a long way in changing perceptions. It's also that's I think the IA did a study then a little later, which also I think surveyed, they looked at all the ad films that were published in India during, I think, 2019 and 2020. There again, they saw that when it came to a film which was showing households, the man was watching TV, the woman was in the kitchen. And that was, I think, for about 70 to 75% of the films. Yeah. So that's also something which we need to change. I mean, during the lockdown, we saw there were men who were cooking. And a lot of men do cook. It's just not portrayed in advertising yet. So that's something which probably the industry needs to look at. And maybe like I've been reading that advertising is following pop culture. Normally, they're not really at par with it. I think that needs to change, because we all are, like, men are cooking, women are driving. It's as simple as that. If an ad campaign can just show that instead of a woman cooking and a man driving, I think it changes a lot.
Right. No, over the years, we've seen it, since advertising has created stereotypes, and yes, gradually it's being changed, but it's going to take some time. And little steps like these can really add value, and together, make a lot of difference. Rashmi, last question, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Radha. Policymakers, businesses, civil society, everyone has been talking about gender equity, but there has been little progress to date. How can we cut the chase and take concrete actions to accelerate change?
I think it has been a conversation only in many spaces. And to be honest, I think only when action happens at a business level, say for example, if you look at how my role in Denso is positioned, it does not sit within HR, it sits with the business. That means the company understands that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a business imperative. Only when we make decisions and we stand by them and say that these are business imperatives, I think only then will change happen. If you look at the journeys that we've had, I think at least from 2 decades, it has become myopic in some nature. But I think if you remove that aspect of myopia from the whole conversation, I feel at least for organization like ours in the advertising and marketing field, our clients are expecting to see these changes in terms of either gender diversity or inclusion of folks from the LGBT plus community, or even ensuring that we feature disabled talent in either the work that we do or even in our teams. So that means that the clients are expecting these. The clients can actually see the changes that we make. Social media is much more visible these days. So whatever happens is coming out in the market. People are reacting to this. And I think this is one opportunity for us to encourage this as organizations, because the clients will ask us and they will want to know whether they are being reflected in either the advertisements that we feature or even in the teams that we put forth whenever there is a campaign that is being brought about. And I really liked what Raahil said, that, we are a mirror on the society. Advertising is like a mirror on the society. It also has a very powerful ability to shape the society. So the way we position conversations, be it gender, be it LGBT plus or disability or any other aspect of diversity that I'm missing out of, I think that's how the industry can play a very important role in leading the change from within.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. Radha, your thoughts?
That's a very interesting point, what Rashmi pointed out. And just to add to that, Charu, what we are trying to bring in here is not change per se, it's a transformation. So any transformation effort that one does, whether it is at an organizational level or at a societal level, takes a lot of time, and it has to be consistently, driven. And that apart, I think the good thing is that there are some visible changes that we can see. It is not as bad as what it was maybe 10 years ago. And awards like these are only going to further enhance or further the journey that we are on to. The other point that I want to say is that at some point in time, we should probably also have awards like, those among men who have been encouraging women leaders, those who have been, supporting women through different walks of life to succeed, etc. Because I think that's also in some way recognizing we have to build that ecosystem today. As much as the effort one puts into sort of encouraging women to come out, we should also have probably programs to tell men how to handle women leaders, how to handle the complexity they come with, because they are even today, by and large, trying to manage both spectrums with equal attention, right? So these are some things that probably still needs to be done, and I'm hoping that at some point in time, such awards also get introduced as part of the overall recognition of women and women's achievement.
No, absolutely. And in the future, there will be no women leaders, but only leaders is the change I wish for. And thank you so much for joining us on Mrigashira.
Thank you.
Yes, that's what we aspire to do. I mean, Women Leading Change Awards will probably only be running till women need to get that recognition. At the end of the day, we want women and men to both be dominating their workspace. And I think once women get the sheer recognition that they deserve, we probably have to do without the awards, and we'll be more than happy to probably cancel them in the future.
And Charu, I think in future the award should become more gender agnostic so that anyone who has really achieved something really good and has a story to tell should be positioned and should be called for this.
Thank you so much for joining us on Mrigashira.
Hope you enjoy listening to Mrigashira, a podcast for communication folks. Do share your suggestions and feedback on Mrigashira at digitales.co.in. Have a great week ahead and do not forget to tune in next week. Adios.